Hello, good afternoon, Carolyn Gillespie. Welcome to Passos del Camino. It's such a pleasure to have you here. And I really want to have a good time here with you, speaking about the Camino, uh, and just sharing Camino.
Thank you very much for asking me to come and talk with you. That's really kind of you to invite me.
So, Carolyn, let's talk. How did you find about the Camino? What was your first encounter with the Camino?
Well, actually, the weekend we've just had, I spent the weekend with the two people who first mentioned the word Camino to me about 35 years ago. So when I was at university, two friends were studying history, and they wanted to do a walk over the Napoleonic battlefields in the north of Spain. And so they were really basing their walks on the battle sites in the north of Spain, and they were looking at Wellington's campaigns there. And they stumbled upon the Camino kind of by accident as they were looking at the battlefields, and they walked a section of the Camino back in 1988, maybe, long time ago. And when they came back, while they were walking, they got caught up with a couple who were doing the Camino on horseback. And at various stages, they bumped into this couple, and they wrote the man wrote a book about his experience on the Camino, which our friends featured in. So we felt like they were kind of celebrities because they were in the book. So I first heard about it then. And it in my mind, it was associated with something of historical significance. And it kind of sort of macerated in the back of my brain there for a few decades. And then much later on, about maybe 10 or 12 years ago, I can't really remember when, but do you remember when the volcano erupted in Iceland and everybody was stuck? Everyone's travel plans were spoiled.
Yeah, I guess it was 10 years ago, I guess.
Yeah, my sister and I were in Madrid visiting my sister's daughter, my niece, who was working in Madrid. And we had only gone there for a weekend, but we were trapped. We needed to get back to our jobs. And so we had to take this very long way back to Scotland. I lived near Edinburgh. And we had to take this very long route back on trains and boats, buses, taxis to get home to Scotland. And we met a woman at the port when we were waiting to get the ferry back from France. Who had just walked the Camino, and she was kind of alive with her experience. And it was so wonderful talking to her. And my sister's son had done similarly a couple of days on the Camino, and the route that I knew I thought was historically significant. It turned into something else when I was speaking to her. I saw that it had a much more spiritual, almost mystical dimension from the way she was talking. And at that point, and the adventure of us traveling home the long way from Madrid planted a little seed, I think, that was nourished over the next few years, until I knew that I really had to do it. I was working in a job which was extremely demanding, and I was working 90 or more hours a week, and there was very little time for me in the job. There was my family and my husband and my work, and not very much time for me. And the Camino kept calling to me and thinking, you need to make a change in your life. Something needs to change here. So I decided to give up work, and I gave up a job that I really loved. I was a teacher, and I really loved being a teacher, and I loved working with young people, but I knew that it was time to do something different. And so I gave up work, not knowing what I was going to do with the rest of my life, but knowing that I wanted to walk the Camino. And I was in a fortunate position that I was able to do that. And I'm very grateful for that. I know that that's not the same situation for everybody, but I was able to make that decision. And it was for me, it was a really good decision. So I trained, and then I walked that year.
Yeah. So
when I left.
When you decided that year, when you trained, when you try to prepare yourself to do Camino, and then when you're in your first day of the Camino, when you put your feet on the first day of the Camino, and looking back to that travel to Scotland and this the chat with that lady. So what was kind of your first impression of that your first Camino, you know?
I was really nervous on that first day because I think I had really focused on the physical preparation for it. And I was walking with a friend who in the beginning just did a few training walks with me. And then as time went on, she became more and more involved until she said she was coming the whole way with me, which was fantastic. And I think we've been really focused on getting fit enough, on being able to carry our packs. That seemed the most important thing. And on the way to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, at the airport, we met somebody. We had shells on our back,
Yeah.
and somebody sort of introduced themselves to us and said that they were pilgrims too. And were we going to Saint Jean? I didn't know what they meant by Saint Jean. I realized that they were talking about Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port. And I was uncomfortable. I thought, oh, like, is this going to be like a group thing? I'm not really big on group things. I'm quite a private person, you know, I'm quite a solitary person. I like my friends, but I was nervous that this was going to be a kind of group thing. And I think my friend was too. I think she thought we were all going to have to kind of pray together or sing together or something that was going to make her feel uncomfortable. So on the first day, I think we were a bit apprehensive about that. And on that, we didn't stay in an albergue in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port. We stayed with friends of we were three for the first week, and we stayed with a friend of one of the third person.
Yeah.
And so we didn't have an introduction to other pilgrims then. And when we arrived in Roncesvalles and there was dinner together all in the monastery that first night, I thought, well, I don't know if I'm going to like this. I don't know. I'm tired and I've got to sit at a table with all people that I don't know, and I'm going to have to talk to strangers, and I'm not sure I'm happy about that. So I think I felt a lot of anxiety and a little bit of discomfort on that first day about what I'd got myself into, because I hadn't really considered the Camino aspect of the walk. Of course, many of those people that we met on the first day became like family by the end of the walk, and all my inhibitions and my all the sort of the shell that I'd built up over the years gradually sort of fell off as I walked, and I opened and became a different person, as you say. By the end of the walk, I wasn't the same person as I was at the beginning.
But you know, the Camino is like that. For example, on my first Camino, on bicycle, when I arrived to Santiago, to Obradoiro, so this many pilgrims talked about the feelings of the arriving and how they felt emotional and stuff like that. But for me, it was normal. It was okay. I arrived. I felt happy, but was that? There was nothing more to it, you know. I don't know why, but it was like that. And I don't know if it was because it was my first Camino. I don't know if it was because I was riding my bicycle. I don't know, because I was kind of lost in the world, you know, by that time. But the truth is, I didn't felt that energy that, you know, that year. Later, yes. But that year, it was one more experience, you know. And I guess, and maybe many people can relate to that. The Camino, for me, it's a metaphor for our life. Of course, there will be bad moments. Will be moments where we felt uncomfortable, but then will be my very happy moments. And we met good people, we met bad people, but in the end, the good overpasses the bad, you know. So those moments, let's talk about those moments. Can, of course, that in the monastery was your first community meal of walking. But if you can, like, tell about one of those community meals, what was kind of the special one for you?
There were so many times that we that we have a pretty bad TV program in Britain, which you probably haven't heard of, called Ready Steady Cook, where a chef is presented with a bag of 5 ingredients and told to make a meal. And there were so many nights I felt like I was in Ready Steady Cook, where we'd go into a little shop where there'd be a courgette, a bag of macaroni, a tin of tomatoes and some butter, and you had to just invent a meal with the very small amount of ingredients that were available. And usually in a communal space, there'd be people who'd say, oh, you can have a bit of I've got a tin of something or other that will make it better, and then together as a group you can make something better than you started off with, which is also kind of a metaphor for the Camino.
Yeah.
But I remember one evening in I think it was in Hornios. We were the last people into the albergue there, and it was we were lucky to get beds that night. And we were really tired, and we'd done a similar thing. We'd gone to the shop and found what we could find. And when we got into the kitchen, it was all very busy. And there was a woman who became a good friend. There was a big crowd of kids in there. And when we arrived in, she could see we were tired and hungry. And she was like, right, kids, let's get moving. And they moved out of the way, and she set the table for us. And it was a really beautiful meal where we sat with her, and she told us all her stories. And she was a really important figure to us then for the rest of the walk, that kept cropping up. She felt like our mum that night. She sort of sorted out the kitchen for us, found the one good knife that we could chop the onion with.
Oh, that's
she
amazing.
was very, very welcome.
Let me tell you something similar. It was kind of my first one, kind of. So I was in this albergue, also on my first Camino. On my second stage, I was just in the border with Spain and Portugal. And the end of October, there were 4 pilgrims in the albergue. There was myself, a guy from Canada, and 2 Germans. But these 2 pilgrims from Germany, they are doing the way back from Santiago to Porto by that time. And there was just the 4 of us. And I don't know, by that time, that Camino, I have done it with just a few money, just a few euros. So by that time, I didn't want to go to a restaurant and to get a meal. I thought, I'm here, okay, let's cook. So I was kind of friends with the Canadian. Ross was his name. And I speak to Ross, and I told him, so Ross, today I just felt that I like to cook. So I put like 5 euros. He put like 5 euros more, and with 10 euros we went to the supermarket, and we get some rice, some pork chops, something. And then I came back, and I went to the kitchen, and I started to cook, and I realized that I didn't have olive oil, and to prepare the rice. But the only like fat that I had, it was butter. But in my life, I didn't have ever cooked rice with butter. So that was my first time and the only time to be true. But I cooked that, and for me it was kind of okay. It's a bad flavor or a strange flavor,
Yeah.
But so it was enough food for the 4 of us. So I invited the other 2 pilgrims, the Germans. So we had all the 4 of us. We had eat that, and the rice, it was finished. There was no more rice at the end of the food. But for me, that was that was a really really strange flavor. But I can really, it was special. It was special
Yeah.
because of that. Because of that. So let's keep going. Imagine that in this moment you could transport yourself to the Camino, to one of the stage of the Camino. What stage would you choose?
I choose that hill walk up to O Cebreiro.
Yeah, La Fava.
Where the views are just so spectacular to the left. You walk up from that last village, and it's quite steep, so it's quite a challenging walk, but it's just breathtaking. The views were just gorgeous. And then when you arrive in O Cebreiro, it's like you've arrived in another world from a different time. Yes, it just felt impossible. Like it was a sci-fi film where we'd just step through into another dimension. It was
And
wonderful.
if you could choose between sunrise or how can I say sunset?
Oh, definitely sunrise. The sunrises were just incredible. And we were up, we were those annoying people in the albergue that were up early and out before everybody else was awake, or we were probably waking everybody up. But we loved that. We loved being out really early in the dark and then watching the sunrise. Just extraordinary. In Castro Jerez.
That is, yeah.
I think there's a long steep walk as you come out from Castro Jerez, or is it Hornios? It's one of those two. And the sunset there was just absolutely breathtaking. The sunrise was breathtaking.
Yeah.
It was frosty. We walked in, it was probably April when we were there, the end of April, and it was frosty in the morning and just this gorgeous yellow sunrise, just like liquid gold on the fields. It was wonderful.
So let me tell you a story that happened to me a few days ago, last weekend. It's really amazing. So a few months ago, I had this French guy that sent me a message because he wants help to do the Camino from the southern parts of Portugal, from Algarve. And I helped this guy whatever I could. It was not even a friend of mine. It was someone that knows Portuguese and asked for my help. So I helped in the way that I could. And that was like 2 or 3 months ago. And I sent messages, I sent the apps, whatever I could do, I sent it. And that was it. I didn't have any more news about the guy. Not that he was even walking. So last Saturday, I was on my shift to volunteer at the albergue. I spent the weekend there and on the Portuguese Camino. And suddenly, there was a French guy that came up and speaks really well Spanish. And it was a really, really harsh day. It was not many pilgrims there, but lots of people not speaking English. And it was really almost lost in translation. But then I have this guy, I speak Spanish also. This guy came up and we started speaking a little bit, and it was the same guy.
Oh my goodness.
It was the same guy. And both of us, we didn't realize that we had, so that it was me and him, that
Yeah.
when we realized it was so beautiful, so beautiful.
Yeah, that's lovely.
That Camino stories. So I have one that is kind of similar, but I don't know, it's really special for me because more around 3 years ago in 2019, more around this time of the year, I was also doing volunteer at the albergue. And for you to have an idea, this albergue, it's not kind of so well known because it not on the end of the stage, in the middle of the stage, and it's not so well known. And it's not so well known. It's not so well known because it's on the middle of the stage. So if you can stay in the end of the stage, most of the albergues are known. But this is not so well known because of that. But sometimes it gets full. And mostly around that time, in May, the first days of May, the first weeks of May. So 3 years ago, I was there on the albergue, and the albergue where I volunteered has 42 bunk beds. 42. And in that day, I was the 1 of May or 2 of May. I left there 58 pilgrims. 58 pilgrims. It was a lot. I put mattresses on the floor, people sleeping on couches. It was a really, really difficult day for me and very tired day to me. And then that was it. 3 months later, I went to the Camino. I'm walking the Primitivo. I'm walking the last stage already on the French Camino, because the Primitivo, the last 550 kilometers are the same as the French Camino after Melilla. And then on the last stage, just 10 kilometers or 12 from arriving to Santiago, there was in August. You can imagine that part of the Camino in August, on the 15th of August, I guess. And there was lots of people, hundreds of pilgrims, to arrive in Santiago. But then one of them that really stick out to me or to everyone, because I was doing the Camino in reverse. So it was passing by pilgrims, and we said, Buen Camino, Buen Camino, Buen Camino. And I did the same. When he passed by me, I said, Buen Camino. And he looked up to me, and it was a really, really strange look to me. And I kept walking. I didn't realize that I kept walking. But then I looked back, and he just said to me, "Are you Guillermo?" Yes, I am, but how did you know my name? So for you to imagine, that pilgrim was a Spanish pilgrim that was 3 months before with me that year in Yalberg.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, 3 months before. And I found them 3 months later walking to Camino.
Yeah.
And for me, it was not that just the encounter, so kind of a blessing to me, but the idea that he remembered me, he remembered me. And sometimes if you have like 14, 15 pilgrims on the Alberta, it's easy to relate to everyone, to speak to everyone. But when you have 60 people on the Alberta, it's almost impossible to even remember one name, you know. But then you remember me, and that was
that's beautiful.
That was beautiful for me,
Yeah.
Carolyn, arriving in Santiago, how it was?
Well, I started the walk. There were 3 of us. A friend from school who is a modern languages teacher at school, so a fluent Spanish speaker. She began the walk, but she just walked for 1 week, and then she had to go back to work. And my friend Ali and I continued all the way, and various people came to join us for sections of it. And my daughter came to join us for the last week, which was wonderful. And my husband joined us. Well, she maybe joined us for the last 10 days, actually. And my husband joined us for the last 5 days, just the glory bit from Syria he did with us. so there were, and a friend who some part of our Camino family was also with us. So there were 5 of us walking into Santiago, but Ali, my companion from the beginning, and Jean we'd been together a long time. So it was interesting walking into Santiago, because when we got to the top of the hill, I forget the name of the hill. It's just
Monte Douglas.
Yes, we stopped there and had a drink from there was a kiosk selling.
Yeah.
And we kind of looked down into Santiago, and it was a foggy day, and we couldn't really see very much. I think we could see the town, but not much. So as we walked in, it felt a little bit. I think I'd, bit like you, I'd expected to have a really kind of big rush of emotion when I saw Santiago for the first time, and I didn't. At the top of the hill, I didn't really feel anything because I couldn't really see it, and I felt sort of reluctant to be arriving. I think I didn't really want to be there. I wanted to keep walking for a bit longer. And as we came down into the town, we suddenly became very, very tired. We felt good that morning, and it felt impossible to keep going. In fact, my daughter lay down on the ground and she said, I can't go any further. And we were maybe less than a kilometer from our destination, and we all felt like that. We all just thought, it's just too much. We just can't do it. So we sat down and had a drink. It was very close to the end. We had a coffee or something to try and pick us up, and we were really tired. And then when we picked ourselves up to walk, my daughter and my husband, I think they both had decided that it needed to be our thing to arrive in Santiago, just the 3 of us. So they hung back a little bit behind us. So Jean and I were walking on the pavements, were quite narrow. Jean and I were walking on the pavements and we were just kind of looking at our feet, not really seeing. And Ali from behind us popped her head through the two shoulders when we were walking. She said, look, it's there. And we could see the cathedral up ahead at the end of the street. And we were suddenly like energy, so much energy. So we then really moved fast to get to the square. And it was just it was a very overwhelming feeling. We really did feel that rush of emotion then of having completed something really kind of big. It felt pretty euphoric when we arrived there, although tears, there was a lot of tears and not many words when we first arrived.
So that's amazing. So Carolyn, after that arrival and looking back, what the Camino had given to you that led you to write a magnificent book as your book Pilgrim?
I think that it did a number of things. It gave me space to change my perspective, to sort of see life from a different vantage point and to reconsider where I was going and where I was headed. And I think I sort of began it like many people do, thinking that the Camino would give me lots of answers to questions like, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? You know, what do I need to go back to teaching? I thought it was like a kind of magic 8 ball. It was going to give me the answers in that way. And it didn't do that. It gave me the answer to the question, what do I want to be? Who do I want to be? It was much more about being than doing. And it gave me the space to really process lots of difficult relationships in my life, and to also to let my children go. They were leaving, they had left school. They were just the youngest two were starting university and the oldest was at university, and making that transition from being a mum with 3 children at home to being one whose children have flown the nest is a difficult one. And the Camino really helped with that. It helped me to let them go with love, to go and make their own way in the world.
It was about rebirth and redemption.
Yeah. It helped me to move from one phase into the next. I think it's really a useful way to make transitions, it's a useful space to be in when your life is in some sort of change or flux, and to help you move on for whatever reason that might be.
And after that, what drove you to write the book?
Then I think I really wanted to make sense of my own experience, and writing is my way of doing that, of my way of making sense of things. So I wanted to capture all the beauty and all the wonder and all the mystery that I had experienced. I didn't want to lose that. And so writing it, I wrote while I was on the Camino, I wrote. So I wrote a daily sort of blog really for the family who were at home and friends who were at home. And when I came back, I had about 40,000 words. So that's quite a big bit of text. So I had something to work with, and I wanted to just kind of flesh that out. So I had a skeleton of something, and I really wanted to explore on a deeper level really what that change had meant, or what it looked like to me. And so writing was as much for myself as anything when I came back to try and process or integrate the impact of the Camino on my life when I came back.
That's amazing. So tell us a little bit about the book and where you can find it, for people who don't know. Please.
The book is called Pilgrim. I've got a copy here I can show you. It's got a pair of our shoes on. Well,
that's amazing.
On the front.
That's a beautiful. That's beautiful.
These are my shoes. And these shoes here, my friend Lynn, who's the most organized of the four of us who were walking, this annoys her every time she sees it because the shoes are the wrong way around. And she's the most organized of people. She's like, why didn't I put my shoes the right way? But it feels like a nice, it encapsulates all the twisted laces and all the lives all connected, because our children had all grown up together, and our lives are very intermeshed. So it feels like it felt like the right picture to be there on the front. So the book launched in December, so to the second week in December, so just before Christmas. So we're in month 5, I think, now. And now it's had, I've sold well over 2,000 copies. So it's selling really, really well. And the feedback is really quite lovely. I suppose what I really wanted was to make connections with other people who were either pilgrims or who might be pilgrims, and to and making those connections and hearing from people, sometimes from people in the Philippines, in America, and Australia, and Canada, and Germany, from all over the place. People have been contacting me to say that they've read it, which feels to me, a tremendous joy. So it's very exciting to be kind of having a conversation with people who are far and wide, who might be sort of like-minded, either at a similar stage in their life with children leaving home, or people who want to deepen a spiritual relationship with God, or for whatever reason they might be drawn to pilgrimage or the Camino. It feels nice to make that human connection with them too.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, Carolyn, we are just finishing here, but before, 2 questions and a small request. But first, if your Camino could be described as one word, what word would you choose?
Transformative.
Why that?
Because I felt transformed by the experience. And I think because, as I said to you, it's about kind of moving, like you're a caterpillar and you can turn into a butterfly if you want to.
Now, kind of a weird question, but it's not weird. It's just a really nice way, funny way to find out about one food of the Camino. If you could choose for one food of the Camino, what would you be?
Well, that's easy. Croquetas. Croquetas is like, I had like a hard shell on the outside, but I was really soft and delicious on the inside.
For me, it's tortilla.
Yeah.
For me, it's tortilla. Yeah. So that's really amazing. Caroline, we're almost over here, but to finish in a beautiful way, I'm usually doing this, asking pilgrims to leave a message to the people that will heard about this conversation, and may with this conversation they decide to walk the Camino. It's a message from the Camino to the Camino.
Well, with thanks to the Camino for all the transformation that it started in my life, and that it began. This Camino is not the end; it's a beginning, and it began a process of transformation for me, which I am enormously grateful for. And anybody who's thinking of walking the Camino, I would say just go for it, because when else do we get an opportunity in life to really put ourselves first, which seems like a selfish concept, but actually now and again in life, maybe in the course of a whole life, it feels like something we're entitled to once or twice.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So I have no words. How thankful I am for you to be here. Thank you so much, Carolyn. It's really a pleasure. Thank you for sharing your experience on the Camino. And I really could meet up for you sometime on the Camino or over England. I'll be sure to buy your book maybe next week. Thank you so much for being here. It was really a pleasure.
It was a pleasure.
And Buen Camino.
Thank you, Buen Camino.
Thank you so much.